Hey, it's Zax and Jimfro from Ready Check Pull. We got to test one of the bosses of the first raid in Shadowlands, so we're here to break it down for you real quick. The full guide will be out later on, but for now, here's a little preview.
So Sludgefist was the fourth boss we got to test. His main mechanic involves us getting him to charge into these 4 pillars in the room, destroying them in the process. It's an entirely single target fight, and it's actually a relatively simple encounter, despite being the 8th boss in the raid. We're thinking it's probably going to function as some sort of gear check or DPS check to get us to the last 2 bosses. But anyways, let's get into his abilities. First up is his melee swing, which also hits the next closest target, so the tanks will need to stay stacked to prevent other players from getting meleeed. And likewise, melee should stay away from the tanks. On pull and throughout the fight, he'll cast a roar that does damage and pushes everyone back. You just want to make sure you don't get pushed into these Stonequake zones. The Stonequake zones spawn on random players and last for the entire fight, so the raid's probably going to have to be positioned near a wall and move together so that you don't run out of room to work with. You'll also want to position the boss away from the pillars, because he occasionally casts a 20-yard stomp that destroys any pillars it hits. It also damages and knocks back any player it hits. Destroying the pillars prematurely is really bad, because you'll need the pillars for the charge he does every time he gets to full energy. This charge always targets the current tank, and the tank will need to run behind a pillar so that the boss will charge into the pillar. The boss will damage and stun any players in the way, and if the boss hits the wall instead of the pillar, it's a guaranteed wipe after a few seconds. There are only 4 pillars to work with, so his 5th charge is effectively a hard enrage. Also, everyone will take more and more constant ticking damage for every pillar that's destroyed, so that means the healing required is going to ramp up a lot throughout the fight. Sludgefist also has a couple abilities related to his chains. One of them being that he will occasionally chain 2 players together for the rest of the fight, and if those players move further than 12 yards apart from each other, they will both instantly die. The initially targeted player gets a few seconds to stack with the person they want to be chained with, and if no one stacks with them, well, they're dead. The other chain mechanic is when he targets a random player with a red circle, roots them in place, and then pulls everyone in the circle to him. He then does a ton of split damage to everyone in the circle. This means that a few allies will need to move into the circle to prevent the targeted player from getting one shot. Other than that, and some random little swirlies to dodge, that's the fight.
By far the most common way people will die in this fight is by not staying with their chained partner. That mechanic is actually kind of crazy since it lasts the entire fight and both people instantly die if they even slightly mess it up. To be honest, I think that's probably the one mechanic that makes this guy an 8th boss instead of a first boss. We actually thought it might be the first boss since you apparently fight him in the same room as the first boss. Anyway, the mechanics are super simple, but this fight has gear check written all over it.
Thanks so much for checking out this guide preview of Sludgefist. We're always looking for more people to test with, so after you've liked the video, make sure to go join our Discord and message us in Shadowlands to get an invite to the Ready Check Pull Guild. Hope to see you in beta. Peace.